All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. Hope you guys are having a good week. Yeah, I'm really excited to share with you guys the learnings of Skyweaver. For those of you who don't know, just a little bit of history on us. We actually had the original idea for our game back in the summer of 2017. This was pre-721. And the whole idea was looking at video games and understanding, okay, the virtual item market for video games is really well understood. There's north of $40 billion spent even in the free-to-play game market. What happens if we put them on chain and allow users to own them and trade them and build these virtual items on open protocols and open standards? What does that do to the game design space, and what does it change? What does it open up for players, and how does it change incentives? And it gets kind of pretty crazy, right? So that was the whole idea. And then I started, building the team and formulating, started going back to old friends and saying, hey, do you guys want to build this crazy company? Or actually, it was just a fun art project was the idea. It's like, do you want to build this crazy thing? I think it's going to be a good idea. And by January 2018, we kind of were full on building it. So yeah, I'm excited to share that with you guys all. A little bit of design goals for us when we were looking at all this was, again, there was really nothing in the space around. Obviously, we could see even, I think, November CryptoKitties was coming around, or October-ish. I remember first seeing it at ETH Waterloo. It was really funny. They had digital collectibles. Like, I saw the sticker and I was like, that's a good way to describe this thing, and we were just ideating all of this, right? So, but the first thing we always thought about was the design goals of this stuff. And the idea was, let's make something on Web3 that's fun and our friends can actually use, right? So let's make a game that leverages this technology in a really novel way, can push the format forward, the design space, but it's going to be simple enough that our friends can use, and our friends, of course, are not blockchain experts. Most of them are not. So that was very important that the users of our game didn't have to have any blockchain knowledge. It was also important that the game was free to play, and it was very accessible for others. But of course, you could own these items, and it was the idea of an open economy, that you could actually, and that the whole economy was built upon these open standards on a decentralized network, such as Ethereum. That was a really kind of key focus to us. We were very focused on gotta go on Ethereum, gotta be on Ethereum, even though it doesn't scale, we're gonna figure it out. And the first thing was we started doing state channel research. That was kind of what we started looking at for provably fair off-chain gameplay. And that took us a really interesting exploration across the entire infrastructure design space of these games. That's a different conversation, really cool, and fun. It was also really important for us to, in the nature of video games, to not have something that was pay to win or have predatory or confusing pricing. That was really important for us, especially because these, you imagine like a loot box with crypto in it, and it can be very confusing and very attractive to people, but they could very quickly start burning money. And the idea was, if I don't want to sell this to my friend, I'm not going to sell this to anybody. That was pretty much it. So it was like, no loot boxes, and so that was really straightforward. But at the same time, it was very important for us to have the game be accessible to people in terms of accessing these items, but we actually didn't want, we still want to have this, a spectrum of different types of goods that could cater to a varying degree of buying power. I think as a lot of people in the gaming industry know that, it's like the crazy amount of your revenue, north of 80% of your revenue comes from a small subset of your actual end users. Yeah. Sorry, this thing's dimming, it's dimming here. So that was really important to make sure you have a sustainable, business model here, so that there's this variety of goods. But making sure that the accessibility into the game, the competitiveness, isn't limited, so that we want to make sure anyone can come and play, anyone can be the best player potentially, right? And in terms of the economy and the kind of the loop of the way we were looking upon it was to say, let's reward skill, right? That's the whole aspect. Especially, I guess I didn't tell you guys, Skyweaver is a multiplayer. Turn-based strategy game. It's a trading card game like Hearthstone and Magic and Pokemon. Sorry about that. Yeah, so very skill-based, highly competitive, very deep. The other thing about it was, okay, so we have to make sure, by January 2018, we realized, okay, in order to achieve these combinations of goals, the wallet is actually going to be a really important key to this, so that we can offer them the ability to kind of access these systems in a way that's familiar to them as gamers. And finally, we can't expect our users, our gamers, to actually have an ETH in the first place, right? It's not that easy to acquire ETH. It's not that easy to really work with ETH. So that was a really important requirement. So these are the design goals that I'm going to share with you guys, all the learnings and the things that we did and all that. And we're very happy that actually we've achieved them all, actually, I'll say. Which has only taken 4 years, but which is the point of, the iteration kind of thing. And I think you'd be surprised with what you can achieve by just kind of chipping away, consistently and making things consistent. I love refactoring. I have an engineering background. I love refactoring. I love when people on my team tell me they want to refactor something. Yes, man, just refactor all you want, I just love that. because it's just making it better. It's kind of building the right foundations and architecture that will really like set us forward and let us kind of have this idea of like this compounding power, or this compounding productivity actually is what it is. Anyways, so to share with some of you guys some iterations of Skyweaver, this was designed in February 2018 by Daniel, our co-founder and head of design. He did it right in front of me in the kitchen table. I didn't see it, and I walked to get some water. I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, holy shit, man, that's like really good. And he just did it in like an hour and a half. He has like this little Tableau thing or whatever. He's like sketching it. He's like going like this. He was like just amazing. Blew me away. And then he's like, he's like, it's not good enough though. He's like, we got to get it digitally painted. I'm like, all right, man, like go crazy, like go ahead. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna digitally paint it. So he did that, and then now this is what it looks like today. So we digitally painted it again, right? So really happy. And even this, I was like, Daniel, this is beautiful, man. He's like, it's not good enough. I'm like, okay, man. I was like, but people like it. And he's like, it's not good enough. I'm like, okay. So then he came to me with this, and I just love that. This is like, interestingly as well, this is our game design sheet that we have for all of our different cards. To this day, it stands as a really important tool with the iterations that we've taken, and it has all the cards and all the balancing, all the mana curves, everything. We even use this sheet to actually export into our card pipeline. We can co-generate a lot of things that actually happen across our system and all the metadata, everything that comes right off this thing. And it's a really fast pipeline. One of the guys who helped design Skyweaver, he was previously working at Wizards of the Well, at some point in his life was working with Wizards, working on Magic the Gathering, and then he actually worked on Legends of Runeterra. Great guy, like loves card games. And when we worked on this card sheet, he was like, man, he's like, I've worked at Wizards, I've worked at Riot. He's like, I've never seen a team move as fast as you guys and actually take this idea and put it into actually the game. And I was like, that's because we're not a game company, we're like an infrastructure company. I was like, we're just, that was kind of it. And so we created a very fast feedback loop to actually get this stuff out and put out this content. And so this is actually also was taken in February, where the first thing we did was like, let's put the game on paper and actually see how this is fun and figure it out. It was important to us, of course, not to just, Jonathan wasn't even with us at the time, actually, he came, I think, in the springtime. But we were, looking at this and saying, well, how do we advance we're not just gonna introduce a game and like just tokenize assets and put them on or whatever and like make this, like copy Hearthstone, like that's not what we're gonna do. That doesn't make it, gamers are not gonna like that. They're gonna say this game's a copycat, sucks, I'm not gonna play it. So we were like, okay, how do we advance the game format in terms of wanting to have more depth? I'll just say I played a bit of Hearthstone, I played some Magic. Magic was really the game I was really enjoying, and I wanted more depth in the game. So in any case, we had this idea of like these like 2 card faces and day-night system, and it got a little bit complex when we were playing with it. We didn't really like it. So instead what we did was we actually said, we're just gonna take instead of the 2 faces, the 2 kind of sided card, we're gonna put it on top of each other. So we had these ideas of enchantments and attachments, so you can actually have them be played in the card and add this extra layer into the game, while leveraging the Hearthstone mana system, which was really cool, so you can get mana screwed and stuff like this as you get in Magic, and you can actually have a fast-paced playing game. So we're really pleased with the level of skill required in Skyweaver, and we're getting obviously great feedback from Hearthstone people, and Pokemon people, and Magic people. It's all that cool stuff. So again, back to iteration. This is what the game looked like in December 2018. This is our alpha release, and so this was really cool because this alpha release marked a really important time for us after a year of development, right? And we had a cool meetup, people came by, we were playing it and stuff like this. We actually hired a few people off that meetup, which was amazing, that stick with us to this day. One of our card designers, another guy who helps us with our metagame design, both phenomenal people, just kind of cool. And from that day, we actually treated that as a production release. From that point forward, we would be, doing deploys to production every week or 2, 2 at the latest. And that's when we ignited our community, when we bootstrapped it with Discord, and started doing iterations like crazy. But still, to our game design, one of our game programmers was like, this game, it's not good enough. I remember showing this to a friend of mine, Albert Lai. He runs Big Viking Games, and he's like, man, you guys crushed it with the design. I love this design. I'm like, yeah, thanks, man. And then one of our game designers or game programmers was like, no, man, we got to go 3D. It's got to be 3D. And so that's when we pushed it into this. And this is actually 3D. And this is the iterations we have now. And actually even now, interestingly, these are already outdated as well. These screenshots, these are taken, it's copied some of the slides, this is just to let you know, it's also pretty cool. Skyweaver is actually a web-based game, powered, using 3JS, using WebGL. One day it'll be WebGPU, and WebGPU is a thing, which is going to be really exciting. And but the game, you can play it on your browser, you can play it on your desktop, you can play it on a tablet, on a phone. It's kind of everywhere. The web is very powerful these days, as you guys know. So what have we learned, in all of this development, all these iterations? Well, it's very important for us. We strongly advocate the idea of taking a very game-first approach. It's got to be fun. That's what this is made for. And the idea of Web3 and economies and all these things is just another layer, another dimension and tool that opens up the design space to allow you to do a lot of interesting things. But we really, encourage. We're really happy that we took that approach to have, of course, this very sustainable core game. If you can't do that, naturally, the demand will go away, and then it's not really going to be a long-lasting title. That's very important for us. And of course, as we're all here, we all understand the idea of like this new dimension of having a player-driven open economy, right? The idea of allowing people to own items, allowing them to trade things, allowing them to have open protocols so other people can kind of build around it. And it's a very large design space that I would say is still a lot of things are unexplored. But while we were doing it, and think about this, that we want to have like mass adoption, and anyone can come and have access, and we want it to be competitively fair, that anybody could come in and have full access to the gameplay with some effort, so that they can prove that they can actually be the most strategic and the most skillful in our competitive game. On the other hand, people who are looking at from an economic perspective are looking for scarcity. Scarcity is very directly tied to value and kind of ownership and the excitement of speculation and stuff like this. These are actually opposing things. To have something that is like scarce yet accessible are completely opposing forces. We recognize this very, very early, and we've kind of called it the paradox of scarcity. And so how do you design for this is actually something that's really, really hard. So just think about that. It's kind of, when I thought of it, I was like, fuck. I was like, this is going to make my life really hard. And but with a lot of ideas, we've come to this idea, and I think there's a lot to explore. There's a lot of layers, especially. I'm not going to say this is the only model by any means, but what we essentially chose was having different types of grades of things, ones that are much more scarce and limited. Kind of, you could think of like Magic the Gathering, like a foil card. Other cards that are, of course, still purchasable. The idea of Skyweaver is anything you purchase, you own. So we have these tradable unlimited supply silver cards that are also NFT based that you can own, and that are kind of also the way that we design the economy and everything like that is they're generally stable actually in price. They go for about $1.50, and that's where they kind of sit, which is pretty cool as well. That has been working in practice as we had planned, because the idea is you can come in, you can buy a deck, and you can buy a competitive deck for 40 plus $60, and you can get any deck you want pretty much for that amount of money, and you can be competitive, and you can get into the tournament mode. And again, this is our game, but and then we have these non-tradable goods, which of course are not NFT based, and you can win them through casual play with enough effort. So you're kind of swapping out, like status, collectability, time, and for skill, and all these kind of combinations of things. And it's been working. But to say that our economy is finished is not true. We've had ideas for 3 years ago of things that we're excited to introduce, and we're going to be introducing. So lots of cool stuff. Naturally, community first is really important. I think it's like Web3 gaming is just like the perfect marriage of things. It's so in line with all of this stuff. Our community has been amazing for us, just as a source of feedback, as a source of inspiration, for content creation, for advocacy. They're streaming all the time for us. Our Discord now is at 95,000 people, which is really cool. And yeah, larger than Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena's Discords. And they're just amazing. And we work really close with communities. I've taken lots of calls with community people, getting all sorts of feedback. I've watched a lot of streams, and it's our whole product team. We consider it as one of the most valuable resources we have to make your game successful. The other thing I'll share with you guys as you're building up your games, you're going to expect a lot of bots trying to attack your system, trying to extract value from your economy through a number of different means of pretending to be a real user or trying to be an honest player, which they're in many cases they're not. There's an entire black market industry of people who actually set up tons of companies that are hiring people. They're actually going and attacking these things, programming these things, and attacking your system. And I would say, even though we anticipated this, because it's not unusual in gaming to understand this, but the value of this target is much more significant at this point, because of course it's an immutable blockchain asset that once you transfer, it's gone, right? And if you're using a public blockchain, you can't really be canceling their items or something like that. It's not really a thing. So you have to really be prepared for this and design it with your economics in mind. It's really the only solution is one of economics, because if there's value there, they will not stop. And we anticipated, but we didn't even expect the level of effort that they would have put in. And so it unfortunately wasted a bunch of our time. Would have been rather knocking down the roadmap, but we were instead building a machine learning system to detect these guys and score them. And one of the things about Skyweaver is we can, the whole game is deterministic, in terms of the actual game state. So we can actually replay every single match, and we can see them, we can see all the moves, we can see everything that's going on. So we built this moderation thing, this ML thing, and that was good. It was helping us score things, and it was helpful. But they still definitely extracted some value from our economy, which is, it's not a big deal in the long run, but it's definitely still not something I like, you know. And it's, again, like a waste of time, and it's not good for the community. It's not just not good for business, right? And so what we ended up doing, I'll share with you guys, because I think it's a great idea. And also, I definitely welcome companies to come to this space and offer. I think there's a very big business or multiple businesses to be built just serving this kind of problem, because every single person is going to be having this problem. And there already, a lot of people have had this problem, whether they're talking about it or not. So what we've done is, the thing about our system is like you can win assets obviously through gameplay as well, in different kind of game modes. And we make the minting so fast, within seconds, you know, so then they kind of walk away with it right away. So instead what we do is we've actually delayed the minting of these rewards. So you get to see the reward, but it actually gets delayed for 24 hours, at which point our system can actually score these guys. And if they want to choose to keep burning funds and burning into the game, then they're just kind of dispensing resources, and it's going to cost them money. So again, there's a cost to them for, you know, and they don't really know how long it's going to take for them to get detected and so forth. So just showing you guys that. Other things, you know, when we were thinking about trading is really important, markets are really important, and, you know, recognizing these different platforms, you know, using an order book based auction system for trading these things, you know, in semi-illiquid markets is not a great user experience, a little bit slow. Bartering is actually kind of a slow process, can also be pretty easy to kind of like cheat people, you know, or get hacked. And so, but what is a great experience are storefronts, right? Storefronts, we're very familiar with them, like, you know, click, I just want to buy this and go. And so we were looking at that as how do we achieve this? And, you know, a couple of years ago, we developed a protocol called Nifty Swap. It's a decentralized exchange for swapping virtual collectibles with an AMM-based design, automatic market-making based design, kind of like Uniswap for 1155-based assets. And what it feels like a store is actually a peer-to-peer based marketplace. It's already being used in Skyweaver right now, and you can, you know, if you're buying or you're selling. I've always talked about this idea of I want an e-commerce-like experience for Web3. I'm not looking to compromise that experience, right? So you can come in here, you can click around all these different goods, and you can click buy, and then within, you know, the second click, you've made a purchase. And the interesting thing, the buying is always easy, right? But the selling is the hard part. And what's interesting about the Nifty Swap protocol is the selling side is the identical thing. You can click on your inventory, you click on your goods, and you click sell. And the reason why it sells is because the liquidity is actually on-chain in a contract, so you can kind of swap it out. And so the idea is you can always sell. Very, very cool. And it creates a great experience. The way it works is there's different liquidity providers who are actually putting up the different, like both sides of the market, you know, the cards and the amount of the base currency, which we use as USDC, could be really any ERC20 token. The contracts have been also recently audited by Tornado Cash people. We've audited them now 3 times. We've made a little bit of upgrades. So we just recently got the Tornado Cash guys to give us another audit as we're doing one more upgrade. So it's pretty cool stuff. And then you have the contract, which is fully decentralized. Anybody can build an interface to it, and we built an interface which just runs directly inside of our application, and users can kind of swap across that. And the liquidity providers actually generate 1% on the actual volume that's inside of here, which is also very, very cool. So people can make revenue from the marketplace trades just by being an LP, as you would expect. And you can go check it out on our GitHub down there. The link. So yeah, it's P2P marketplace that feels like a store. And you can think of it like a bit of a vending machine. That's why we have the way that it looks. And so like anybody can deposit these items inside of it, and you can come and kind of pick it up. It's so that's the idea. And we are, just so you know, pretty cool. We're actually releasing NiftySwap.io. Could be 6 weeks, something-ish. Where the testnet's looking really sharp. Got our legals intact. Got our terms of service going. Testers are looking good. And so we're really excited to just make it available in a really simple UI to create your own pools and all these things. But in fact, there's another great project. Another single individual built this. He built SkyweaverSwap.com. Really great job, just interfacing with the Skyweaver Swap pool and allowing people to, you know, make purchases as well. He adds a fee onto that, and of course you can also be a liquidity provider. Pretty cool. So that was a really nice job that he put together. Other things to kind of mention is naturally, I think a lot of people think about when they're doing, like, you know, blockchain-based games, is the idea of items and the immutability of their kind of stats. We've taken the approach to say, like, the game first, the game's really important, the game's got to be balanced, and so forth. So we decided very early that, like, we cannot not allow the stats to be updated in order to make sure the game continues to be well balanced and plays well. That's something we communicate with the community, and it hasn't really been a problem at all. You know, we make regular balance patches. We're actually at balance patch number 92 now, and you can go on our skyweaver.net/news, and we've actually asked the community. It was like, we did a poll the other day. We're like, would you guys like us to patch every week, every 2 weeks, or I think it said every 2 weeks, every month, or every 2 months? and everyone's like, just do it every month. So we were working too fast. They're like, just balance it, like, because we're keep like the meta of the game is kind of the key here, and it was just really cool to hear the feedback that like they're actually really pleased with the meta, is what that's saying, right? They don't want it to change too much, right? So they're saying it's pretty smooth now, but people understand it and it hasn't been a problem. But perhaps you can be really upfront about it in your design decisions. But again, focusing on the game balance is really important. The other thing about it, the other thing to think about is when you are creating your markets and you're thinking about your in-game payment currency, like what are people going to use to actually make purchases? Now you could use ETH, you could use your own token or something like that. But the idea, the challenge is if you have a volatile currency that people are making purchases with, ETH isn't something that I personally like to spend. You know what I mean? I like to hodl that ETH, right? So, and if I make another random currency to spend, it's a little bit, it's a little bit strange. So I like to think about an analogy to Steam and Nintendo. When I'm going and I'm buying in-game credits, I'm buying I'm putting up a balance of some stable currency, and I can buy content inside of those platforms. And luckily we have stable coins, right? So we just kind of ideas like we're going to use USDC. It's the currency people understand. It's well understood. There's a good liquidity around it, and it's also really good for on-ramping. It actually kind of is consistent with that as well. So that was the decision we made. Back to these payment things though, acquiring crypto is still really, really difficult. And although we have integrations with Ramp, MoonPay, and Wire, they're all great providers. We integrated them all. It's just that when the transaction hits the bank and the bank says, "Oh, this is a cash equivalent," I don't really like that. That's not really common in the internet. That's a pretty new thing. And so I would say 50% of our transactions because Skyweaver is designed for, our friends, right? Mass adoption, nor just average gamers. And so if an average gamer doesn't have crypto and is coming in and they're trying to make a purchase, half of those users literally have failed transactions. So we've been doing well, but we've been a lot better. And so you can imagine I'm taking this problem into my hands to solve it, and I'm actually we're partnering with one of these companies, and we have something very interesting coming up that's going to really solve this cash equivalent type problem in a way that's going to be really cool and stuff like this. Mobile payments are also very difficult and they're really challenging. I mean, for the reasons of the mobile, like the store policies are still, a little bit dragging their feet, but it's great to see advancements made by even companies like Epic, putting pressure and opening certain doors, and I'm very optimistic about that. What I would say, in general, this is still a challenge. Skyweaver is in the App Store, like iPhone Store, App Store, and the Google Store, and but we don't have the secondary market enabled. We do allow people to play the game. They can acquire these things. They can be competitive, and so forth. But we don't let them trade because there's no way in a secondary market we can upcharge a 30% markup fee and make it make sense, right? So we don't do that. What you do, as you can tell, is you can use the web, right? You can actually go on your desktop. So that's kind of the best. So I would just advise if you're building your game in Unity or something like this, just make your marketplace on the web, and that's even better anyways because you want it to be accessible from everywhere, and you can make it mobile responsive. You can make it really slick, all those sort of things. When you are thinking about your goods, obviously primary market versus secondary market goods is really important to consider. Now there are primary, like we have these conquest tickets to enter into a tournament. They're a primary, they're a consumable type good that's purchased at a fixed price from our primary market, and it's something that's available that you can purchase through the App Store as well, or via this thing, because the upcharge of 30% is something that, or really, us taking the 30% hit is actually how the math works, is reasonable. So I just wanted to share that. It's a very important thing to be able to monetize your content, and I'm very optimistic for the things in the future, and these are ways that we've been thinking and working through it. The last thing I'll say is, in wallets, it's really important to have liquidity. Your users who are in this that actually have liquidity, because that certainly helps a lot as well. Back to kind of, again, blockchain is not the most user-friendly. This is obviously a problem that we all understand. And the first thing that the typical experience one sees is like, oh, wallet not found, like you gotta install a wallet, and then you gotta start with seed phrase, secret words, and then they want to do finally first transaction, they gotta get some ETH, and then the gas pricing, and the nonces, and the repricing, it sucks, it's super bad. And so, but blockchain can certainly be user-friendly, and there's so many researchers at Devconnect globally who are building great pieces of infrastructure and other layers that are smoothing these things out at an infrastructure level that are in fact directly impacting the user experience, right? And so, we've been taking this problem onto ourselves as well, right? Because as early as February 2018, we realized we got to make a wallet. We got to make a wallet that targets these users and solves against these goals. And so we built a wallet called Sequence, and it's built right into Skyweaver, and you could use it in your own games. It's just a Web3 Ethereum wallet. It's actually a smart contract-based wallet, but it's cool as you can embed it into places. You can use it on mobile and desktop and Unity. You don't have to install it. It can just be kind of like call it like an IAP integration or a PayPal or Stripe type integration, but gives you access to Web3 and then okay, pretty much done. You can do social logins, and the last thing I'll say, which is pretty cool, is it's a smart contract-based wallet, so the cool thing here is not having users think about gas. So we have these meta transactions where we move the gas market away from users into the dApp users. So the dApps can actually say, I'm going to sponsor the gas with these users. So these are the contracts, and if in Skyweaver, like anyone who wants to interact with certain of our contracts, like our marketplace or token contracts, we actually subsidize that fee on the layer 2. And yeah, the meta transactions, in part from smart wallets, are something really, really special. And it also allows users to pay their gas fees in any ERC20 token. So that's it. This is the summary, and thank you very much.